Hey guys, this is Clark. Now, before we start today's show, just a heads up, but we had some technical difficulties recording this episode. Specifically, the last two segments didn't record for some reason, so it'll be a shorter episode than usual. We're still able to get through our main hobby headlines segment, which I think you guys will enjoy, but unfortunately, our regular weekly Pick One segment will have to wait one more week. And yes, if you're a loyal listener, we teased what that Pick One would be on last Friday's show. We recorded it, or we thought we did, but we promise we'll record it again, and knock on wood, it'll air on our next episode. So really, it's a double tease, okay? Anyway, sorry about the inconvenience. I know some of you guys like listening to our pod on your 1 hour commute to work, and now I guess you can listen for 40 minutes, and then, I don't know, there's always Christmas music on the radio. All right, hope you enjoy today's show.
You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way.
Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 180, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. With me co-hosting, as usual, is John, who is Trade You at Recess. And Hyung, again, is away this week, but hopefully he'll be back in our next episode. All right, this is going to be an episode focused on different parts of the grading process because, we know how much we love talking about grading. It's one of those things I guess we in the hobby have to get used to. Some people don't mind it, and there's obviously good and bad with it. But I think there's a couple of recent news and development on the grading front that is worth a discussion. So first off the top, Nat Turner, I believe he's a CEO of PSA. He recently on social media posted that in 2023 to date, PSA received 2,051 copies of the iconic 1986 Michael Jordan Fleer rookie card. Wow. Right? So just a little over 2,000. And out of the 2,051 cards submitted, he said 447 of them were deemed to be counterfeit, which is a significant 21% of the card total, right? Of the submitted card total. So I want to ask you, were you surprised when you heard that statistic or not really? Because, generally people in the hobby already know that the MJ Fleer is one of the most counterfeit, but were you surprised at just how much there are? And would hearing such a high number of counterfeit cards worry you about the value of the Jordan Fleer rookie, right? And what I mean by that is maybe there's a few that slipped through the cracks, especially before and during the hobby boom, during the pandemic. And you never know, right? You never know what's a real MJ Fleer rookie and what's fake. So what do you think? Were you surprised at just how many are actually fake?
To be honest, I kind of am. And I'm just more impressed at people having the fakes and submitting it thinking that it can get by PSA, the audacity right. to send it in. And maybe they send it in because they've gotten away with it. I don't know. Like I'm not gonna try to trash PSA in this moment, but the Jordan 86 Fleer, for those who have known about the fakes. I mean, there is a iconic fake print run of the 86 Jordan. Like, I don't know how many of them got printed, but there's many ways in which you can quickly tell that you have one of these iconic fakes. The little Fleer, there's like a tiny little basketball Fleer emblem at the bottom corner, which is usually a little bit blurry on the fake one. There's there's a dot in the back or something, like on the print, like a print run. There's a dot for the fake one or the real one. I don't know, but there's a bunch of little things you can find, and it's very if you follow, I'm sure one of blowout forums or somewhere has it. There's like 5 steps to quickly finding, and it's boom, 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 boom. It goes right off the checklist. You'll find it right away, right? So I'm actually kind of impressed that many have gone through. How, have some slipped through the cracks over the years? It's possible. The Jordan 86, I mean, we all know that's like iconic. I think when we first started collecting, that was like the holy grail that we wanted to get, right? As young collectors, you got 86 Jordan, you got 79 Wayne Gretzky, you got 89 Griffey, and then a little bit into the sort of modern era, you got Kobe Topps Chrome. But as we've now deepened into our collecting portfolio, I think a lot of us are sort of, I don't know about you, for me personally, I'm the 86 Jordan is still I consider it a grail, but it's not really my grail anymore. Like, I'm not really going out of my way to go for it. I'm not really going out of my way to get a 79 Wayne Gretzky. I think owning a Jordan Auto would be a lot cooler as a grail.
Yeah, right.
A rare Kobe refractor over the Topps Chrome base. Like, there's a lot of, I think everybody's tastes in grail and what they love to collect starts to develop and change over the years.
Right.
So even in terms of my thought, like how I feel about it, I wasn't really that going after the Jordan anyways, but now, knowing that more fakes there could be some BGS slabs that have fakes. There could be some SGC, PSA slabs that could have fakes. It certainly makes me want it even less. If I'm not overly concerned about it, but is it on the back of your mind? Sure, it is.
Yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from, and that's interesting you say that, because I think one of the reasons why, and the whole market's come down, and the 1986 Fleer rookie of Jordan is no exception, but I think part of the reason why it's also come down in price and in value is because of collectors like yourself and for me. When we first got it back into the hobby, this was a grail because this was nostalgic. This was iconic for us as kids, and we all wanted it. But, with the hobby boom and with just the ridiculous prices of like high grade Michael Jordans, and now the whole, this news that there could be a lot of fakes and our taste changing, like you just mentioned, I think the demand is going down just generally. Like, there's not collectors, longtime collectors, or collectors that have come back to the hobby that really want the MJ Grail, like you mentioned, more than any other card. There's other cards we would rather have now.
Right.
So because that demand has gone down, even from that standpoint, I think the value will continue to decrease, and the fact that there's so many counterfeits out there doesn't really help the cause in terms of holding its value. So part of it too is like, oh, I want it because it's so valuable. And when it becomes less and less valuable, then do I really want it as much either, from an investment standpoint. Right. So, I'm with you. If I would still love to have one, but I'm not willing to pay thousands for a high grade MJ 1986 Fleer. I'd rather pay thousands for, the Luka Doncic that I got, the blue auto, obviously Doncic isn't Jordan, but yeah, I'd rather have that card rather than, a card that's, I rather have for nostalgic reasons. So
yeah. And you know what, like, to add one more thought, the scary part about the Jordan 86 Fleer is, and I'm, a lot of people are aware, there's still a lot of these boxes around. Like, people are still cracking them open, buying them.
True, right. Yeah.
So even, let's say, mind of a criminal, present day, you want to, right. You've perfected copying paper. Maybe not a chromium product, but you've perfected the paper, right? Of all the rare, super expensive cards to fake, and let's say you can fake it absolutely perfectly, print, everything is color, is like immaculate. The 86 Jordan, I could see it passing through because even the graders know that 8s and 9s, maybe even 10s still roll in on the daily, right? If I were to fake a Mickey Mantle, or if I were to fake like a PSA 10 worthy Wayne Gretzky, like immediately the moment it comes into grading into hands of these graders, they're gonna like their warning bells go off. Like, wait a minute,
right?
Where did this like SGC 8 level Mickey Mantle come from out of nowhere? And then they'll probably have all their most expert graders on it, researching who submitted it, whatever. They're gonna do extreme due diligence. But I feel like
Right.
the Jordan, because of so many rolled, I mean, look at that, like 2023, what, 2,000 rolled through the door just at PSA alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was faking really, really nice, expensive cards, like the Jordan is an easy one. Like it's an easy target because I think you could slip it through the cracks, right? The Gretzky, some of the older cards that are super rare to get a PSA 10. Obviously a lot less so, but the Gretzky is I feel like it's a criminal's perfect target. So it's just it's another not that it's saying that it's actually happening, but it's a scary thought.
Yeah. It is. Good, excellent point. It seems like you thought about it a lot. So we're going to be curious when one day John says, like, I just made a huge PSA submission, just found these Jordans or Gretzky's. We'll be raising an eyebrow if that ever happens. But excellent point. And you know what? This is a good segue to our next segment. So let's just move on to hobby headlines. So I'm saying it's a good segue because it, again, like I said off the top of the show, this is kind of a grading podcast episode. And I recently read that Gemrate.com, which is a great website to check out pop counts for all different kinds of cards, they released a new grading tool called the Iconic Tracker. And this tool shows how many of the hobby's top sports cards are submitted to the major grading companies each month. All right, so they break it down month by month. And the grading companies they primarily focus on is PSA, of course, Beckett, BGS, SGC, and CGC. Okay, so what I did was I compiled data from a list of 8 iconic cards in the hobby, right, using the Iconic Tracker by Gemrate. And honestly, I was pretty surprised at some of the data. So I thought maybe we can go over my list and I'll tell you how many were submitted just in November alone, just this past month, okay? Then let's talk about what we think that means for that particular card. All right, so let's start with the Michael Jordan because we just talked about it. The 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan. In November, using this tool, I found out that 123 were submitted to PSA, right? In November alone, 123, 33 to BGS, 53 to SGC, and 4 to CGC. All right. So when you hear those numbers, what do you think? Like, this is probably an average, 123, you could probably say, actually, that's probably under an average if Nat said there's over 2,000. So, this is probably a low month. You could probably see a few hundred on a high month in terms of the number of MJ 1986 Fleers that get submitted. Right. So what do you think about that when you see that data?
Immediately, the 4 to CGC, I feel like are 4 fakes. I'm just joking, CGC. No,
I love CGC.
Yeah, I'm sure it's somebody that loves the CGC slab and wants to put their.
Just in case, just triple examine that CGC, all right? Just triple examine those cards.
Man, it's I think to my point earlier about people still ripping some of these packs, people still discovering in their dirty basements, like it's well known how much of a print run that 86 Fleer had back in its heyday, and it's still coming. They're still getting unearthed out of everywhere, so it's incredible. Man, that's like 250, 300 per month across the board. Yeah, right. That's a lot. Yeah. And 86 Fleer Jordan, man, that's what, we're approaching 40 years, and it's
right.
It's an old card, and it's still like, that's how many were printed. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'll only add, like, just seeing those numbers makes me want to, and we talked about this already, makes me want to invest in a Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer card less. Right? Because it's like, at some point, the PSA 10 count is going to increase, you would imagine, unless, they're really examining every card. But the sheer volume and, it's, even if you wait 10 years, I think it's been at 315. So it looks like, there's rumors that PSA is purposely keeping the PSA 10 pop count low. But the 9 and 8s are still valuable, right? And
just imagine the number of like 4, 6, 4, 5, 6, 7s that are going up like on the daily, right? If somebody, if you're one of those that are holding one of the lower grades out there, If it's outside of your PC, if it's investment purpose, yeah, I mean,
I would also say like because Nat Turner came out with that stat saying like they found 20% of our counterfeit, that kind of in a way makes me more confident in PSA, because at least they're saying, hey, this is what we found, and you hope that the other grading companies would do the same. But how much confidence like if I went to a show, I don't know if I would pick up a SGC or BGS MJ Fleer, because I just don't know what their capabilities are of detecting counterfeits. At least PSA, you have a little bit more confidence. So yeah. All right, let's go back to number one. The number one card is, of course, the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle, right? And in November alone, 13 of them were submitted to PSA and 4 to SGC, which makes sense because vintage cards, some collectors like to submit it to SGC.
Right.
But 13 to PSA. Did you think that was? I thought that was a little high, I guess, for a 1952 Mantle.
I'm. It's not a big number, but I'm still surprised. Yeah. I think we all kind of put the 1952 in like we revere that card as collectors, and we feel that it's super, super, super rare. So even if we see 20 being graded in a month, that seems a little absurd. But I mean, there's a bunch of these that are still like kind of, I use the word unearthed, but they're getting dug out of old folks' basements that your grandfather forgot about. Like, it's still happening on the daily that we're not obviously aware. We for those that sort of live in a bigger city, maybe it's not as much of a commonplace, but I'm sure some of the small towns and folks have forgot. And I think another point to all this is this could also be a sign of, as the sports card industry grows, more and more people may be coming back or thinking about, that's a lot.
That's true.
That's what's been happening over the last 2.5 years, right?
Yes.
And,
right. Good point.
I'd imagine like there's still tons out there. There's still people that have, like we talked about, I think we touched on this briefly in some old podcast that we had, one of the older episodes. But Clark, you and I, Hyung, amongst our circle of, even wider range circle of friends, especially males, I would say 90% collected hockey and basketball back when we were young. 90%, and a lot of them may still have. I know a handful of people that have the 86 Jordan. I know a couple of people that have the 79 Gretzky. They're not into collecting at all. I am tempted to give them an offer to take some of those raw cards, but I know they exist, and those guys are not into card collecting at all at the moment. So I think as more and more of those folks that had collected cards, and there's a lot of them, there's definitely a greater population of people that had collected back in the 80s and 90s than there are presently. You're going to continue to see these grading numbers pop up. So it's a function of the hobby growing and coming back.
Sure. Yeah. Good point. Especially with, tying that with what Hyung and I talked about last week with Michael Rubin's comments on the Ringer podcast, what he's trying to do with Fanatics, marketing it, you would expect maybe some of our friends that collected that aren't into collecting now, maybe more marketing, more awareness, and maybe they get back into collecting over the next year, 2, 3 years, right? So that could also add to the number of submissions of some of these iconic cards. But yeah, great point. Okay, I wanted to bring this up for a reason. The number 3, the LeBron James 2003 Exquisite Collection. I believe that's number to 99. Only one submitted to BGS in November, right? So I feel like, 2 points. One, with numbered cards, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, you're not going to see a lot of these kind of be submitted on a month-to-month basis. And I feel like for high-end cards like this, it's I wonder how many is just about reslabbing. Crack and reslab.
100%. Right? In this day and age, whoever is opening an Exquisite Collection 2003, damn well they're filming that, and it's going to be on Lamine James. It's going to be on one of the major, IG handles somewhere out there, right? So I think it's safe to assume that one that went to BGS is some sort of crossover, because had it been a net new exquisite LeBron that came out of a pack, or somebody's collection, I think somebody must have filmed it or something. But I mean, yeah.
Well, that's why this tracker is kind of cool, because you could keep track of everything like this now, right? Like, oh, there was one submitted to BGS or PSA. So,
right.
So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. Okay, number 4, we talked about this, the 1979 O-Pee-Chee Wayne Gretzky rookie card. In November, this past month, 254 were submitted to PSA, 29 to BGS, 23 to SGC, and 3 to CGC. Is this going to be a running gag with CGC? Check those 3 very, very carefully, okay?
The three were actually tops, and CGC mislabeled them OPC.
Right.
I'm just joking, CGC. The Gretzky, on a side note, I have such a fond memory of it, because like when I was collecting as a kid, this going back to like early 90s, obviously I was 12 years old or 13 years old. And, you bring it back in, and as a 12, 13-year-old, obviously you don't have a 1979 Gretzky. And my friend and I were collecting cards and collecting Upper Deck. And his stepdad is looking at, he's like, hey, what are you guys reading? And he goes, oh, it's Beckett. What is that? It's like, oh, it's a sports card, yada, 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 price guide.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, sports cards are worth something? We're like, yeah. Look at, this is like the best card. This is Wayne Gretzky's rookie card. Look at it. And he sees, obviously, the pattern, the blue, and he's like, wait a minute, I think I have those cards. We're like, what are you talking about? He's like, hang on 1 second. And he like runs to the attic. He's like, we help him up to the attic. And he brings out like a garbage bag. It was like in a garbage bag. And he pulls it out.
Oh, okay.
And he just literally dumps it. Like, these cards are brutal. He just dumps it onto the table. And there's hundreds of it. He goes, okay, go through those. And I think you should be able to find a Wayne Gretzky in there. And then we went through them, and we found 3 of them. That's crazy. Three O-Pee-Chee Wayne Gretzky's, yeah. So that was a great memory. I couldn't believe it. Like, as a kid, I was holding the holy grails in my hand. I was like, oh my gosh, we found Wayne Gretzky.
What condition were they in? Do you remember?
They were like PSA 1s and PSA 3s, I mean, they're rolling around in garbage bags for the last how many years? Like, the corners were completely rounded. But it was pretty cool to still find.
That's a funny story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why it's so hard to find really good condition, high grade Wayne Gretzky, O-Pee-Chee especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on an Instagram reel right now to let people know the difference between O-Pee-Chee and Topps, because I don't want collectors to get screwed over. but O-Pee-Chee is famous for their jagged edges. So even if you took care of them, like from the manufacturer, you got to be lucky that's in good shape. For sure. Right? So another reason why.
Their card cutters, their card cutters were like butter knives. It was brutal.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, the 254 to PSA, pretty high, but, not surprising. Okay, let's go to the next one. 1980 Topps, the Larry Bird Magic Dr. J, the card. Considered Larry Bird and Magic's rookie card. 105 to PSA, 11 to BGS, 43 to SGC, and 1 to CGC.
Mm-hmm. I'm still impressed by the number. Like, when I see some of these numbers of 86 Fleer and 79 Gretzky, 80 Topps, they're still pretty big numbers. And I forget, because Clark, you and I were older, but we're not, 60s, 70s, 80s old, right?
Right.
Like, our memory of the junk wax era is 1990 and on, right?
Right. Yeah.
So in my mind, it's like the junk wax is 90s, crazy print runs. But people that are older than us, they will tell you the 80s was like that's a junk wax. Like, that's when it really, 79 O-Pee-Chee and 86 Fleer, that's when it really like popped off, right? And that's not, I'm not aware of that, because that wasn't my era of collecting, right? So I get surprised by these numbers, but when you kind of pull yourself back in, remember, I know that this is not my experience, but people older than me tell me that the 80s was the true start of the junk wax. and you put that lens on, then you're like, okay, makes sense. It makes sense how these cards continue to pump into these grading companies. 1980 Topps, Larry Bird, Magic, Dr. J. To me, that's like an old, rare card. I wouldn't think that hundreds of them on a monthly basis are still coming into grading, right? So it's pretty surprising, but shouldn't be if you know the history.
Yep. No, again, I agree with you. And, at this point, if I am getting a Topps Larry Bird Magic, I want one of those that have all 3
autographed
IP autos on it.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Me too. I'm with you.
I'd rather have, if it's a lower grade, triple auto, I'd rather have that than high grade non-auto.
Yep. Yeah. I would even take like authentic autos, no grade, and still rather have 3 autos. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're on the same page there. All right, 3 more, and you're talking about our junk wax era. So here's one of them, the 1993 SP foil Derek Jeter.
Oh boy.
We love that card.
Yeah.
In November, 151 were submitted to PSA, 59 to BGS, 50 to SGC, and 9 to CGC. What do you think of those numbers?
That's that's not bad. I thought it'd be a lot. I actually thought it'd be a lot higher than that. But I mean, I guess I kind of get it. I'd assume. I mean, it's 96, right?
1993.
Oh, 93. Sorry. Yeah. You're kind of getting into the more modern era of sports cards, and you'd assume a lot of them out there, but I feel like a lot of the newer cards are more connected to grading. And I think maybe what's slowed down a lot of the grading of the Jeter was, number one, like in 93, I wasn't really collecting SP, upper deck. I think a lot of
Neither
people
was I, yeah.
Right? I think that was the new era of SP, the new era of like upper deck introducing like an even high, because for us young collectors, upper deck was like the upper echelon product, right? The premium product is upper deck over Fleer, over Donruss, and then here comes upper deck making a premium version of their own already premium product. I think it was I think it was new back then, so I feel like a lot of the boxes they probably didn't sell as many as they might have anticipated. This is completely my own opinion. There's no factual basis to what I'm saying, but I feel like not as many sold as they might have anticipated. A lot of boxes may have been sitting around.
Yep.
And some of those old boxes back in the day, like a sports card store, not everyone kept them. Like a lot of these junk back boxes, they literally went into the trash, right? So I
tossed it. Yeah.
I could imagine a lot of them might have gone into the trash, got lost, and even to present day, I don't know what it costs now, but I did remember the SP, that box, the 93 SP box, was super expensive. I mean, there's only one card to chase, but it was like $2,000, $3,000. So who the heck is opening the box to try to chase like a singular card, right? So, and a card that's most likely stuck, that will have surface issues. You're not going to get a PSA 10. So it's one of those things where the boxes were too expensive to open, and maybe a lot of the boxes got lost in translation and thrown away. So maybe I think that number is a little bit underwhelming to me versus like when I'm seeing like 90s 86 Fleer and 1980 Topps, but I don't know. Could be a function of some of the stuff that I talked about.
It all makes sense, John. I think everything you said all makes sense, and if you said that as an expert, as a matter of fact, I would believe every word you said. So I think that there is definitely some truth in that. Like honestly, I've always thought SP foil was just rare, but I think it's when I saw 151 just in November, my first reaction was like, oh, it's higher than I expected, right? But maybe it's also because like there's so few PSA 10s, like I think 21, and those go for insane amounts. So like it's, I would just see with the 151 as like people trying to, win the lottery. Like honestly, imagine you're one of those that's submitted and it comes back a PSA 10. Wow, that would be an insane feeling. So yeah, I don't know where they're getting the SP foil now. yeah, I guess there are some boxes available, but
Yeah. Like, I mean, I could personally attest to SP being printed quite a bit because my dad, I mean, we are very prototypical Korean. We had a variety store. Like we
okay,
we
right.
fit the stereotype. And my dad had access, as a in your standard wholesale, you can get cards, right? He had access to SP Upper Deck, like in '94 SP basketball. I was collecting it. I was going heavy. Like anytime I was at my dad's store, I'm like grabbing packs, and my dad like another one. I'm like, yeah. And I was chasing the '94 SP foil, the gold foil Grand Hill, like Grand Hill's SP rookie.
Right, yeah.
And the fact that I did, I have one. I still have it. It's in horrible condition, even though it was pack pulled right into a top loader. I look at the condition, it's brutal condition.
Oh man.
But anyways, that goes to show if my dad had access to hobby boxes or retail boxes, like like a standard convenience store, I can't imagine how many of those boxes were printed or were available at like local card shops.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's good perspective. All right, but this one I know for sure, all right, was mass produced, okay? And you already know what I'm going to say. The 1989 Upper Deck, Ken Griffey Jr. specifically, just last month in November, 718 were submitted to PSA, right? 83 to BGS, 166 to SGC, and 19 to CGC. Big numbers, big numbers.
Crazy. Was there? I remember there was a documentary on Netflix talking about, it was like a sports card documentary. This is pre-COVID. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it's a journey of some guy going through his card collecting from back in the day. But anyways, they end up talking about the '89 Upper Deck.
Griffey.
Yeah, and there's a lot of speculation. It almost feels factual. I don't know. The documentary made it feel factual because apparently they interviewed some top execs from Upper Deck, but there sounded like there was some admitting of what was widely known rumor that they straight up printed the Griffies. So, I mean, so again, going back to my dad's variety store, like after the 92, 93 World Series wins for the Jays, my dad, through the wholesaler connection, he would, in top loaders, he would get stacks upon stacks of John Olerud Upper Deck rookies. Like he's not getting them from, like a local card shop and buying them retail and reselling. He was getting from a wholesaler. I don't know, I think it was a similar way in the '89 Upper Deck Griffey, where Upper Deck was literally just printing these and giving it out mass at a certain price, and people just buying it up. Because I don't know where my dad got it, but he'd show up at our variety store with 300 copies of John Rolled Upper Deck, and we would be selling them raw for $5 a piece, and my dad would be killing it. Like everyone we bought, they'd be buying it, right? I don't know how much he paid. He probably paid like a quarter for each card, but
yeah, damn it. Because I spent $5 for that John Olerud Upper Deck. I got ripped off. Oh man, I wish I had known back then. Oh, that's crazy. No, that's insane. Yeah. Obviously this is one of the higher, and it's no secret the Ken Griffey Jr. I believe is still the most submitted PSA card, right? Still it's the Ken Griffey Jr. So not surprised at that number. All right, let's wrap up this segment with a more modern card, the 2018 Prism base of Luka Doncic.
Oh boy.
That's kind of the modern, I don't want to say grail, but that's the one that everyone's familiar with who got back into the hobby. Last November, 127 were submitted to PSA, 5 to BGS, and 4 to SGC. All right, so the only question I have is who's still submitting base Prism Doncic to PSA? 127, that seems high for what it's worth now, right?
I know.
Am I wrong?
What does the PSA 10 go for? Like $200?
I believe so. No.
300? 300?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's 200. You're right. It was 2,000 at its peak, right? So yeah, it's probably a 10th.
Yeah. Do we know what the PSA 10 pop count is? Like probably close to 20,000, right?
Yeah, I could check it out real quick, but I think you're close to that number. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, I'd assume at this point they're running out, right? There's like maybe
You're right. So the pop count is 19,762 for PSA 10.
right.
And it last sold for $198.25 today. Earlier today.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some people I can't imagine.
$200, I guess that's still something.
Yeah, and
right?
if the PSA, I don't know what the PSA 9 is, but if the PSA 9 is like $80, it's like a pretty good risk, right? You pay a base of, I don't know what the lowest grade PSA general submission is, $20 or whatever it is. But for those that are looking to flip cards through grading, it's still not a bad option. I'm assuming with how low some of this, the current card market is, especially on modern cards, for those that happen to have that card raw form, you go to a card shop. Sure, you could pick it up for fairly cheap. You pick it up for $5-10. It looks like it's in pretty good condition. Grade it for 20 and take that risk, right? So that
right.
I mean,
no, you're right. I was just looking at the numbers. The raw ones sell for about $60. Okay, the PSA 9 goes for about $80. So you're breaking even if it's let's assume $20 grading fee
right.
to PSA.
Wait, you said raw goes for $60?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
that's been the most surprising thing on this list so far.
$60. I feel like great. Is it $20? It's got to be more to PSA.
Oh,
right?
maybe. Yeah. I'm just guessing.
So if you come out with a PSA 10, there's your profit, right?
Right.
You're gonna lose a little bit on a PSA 9, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So I guess it's worth the risk. The number's still, you just hope it's not PSA 8 or lower, but
yeah. And I mean,
I guess
quote unquote cleaning methods have vastly improved over the last little while. So
that's true. Zero surface issues. All right. Well, I thought that was pretty insightful. I love this tool. I'm gonna keep checking it.
I've never even used that. I'm gonna start using it. Gemrate.com.
Yeah. So anyway, if anyone else wants to look up other cards, like if they have 100 of these cards, of the top cards, I'll put the link in the show notes below, so you can just get right to the tool online.
Right.
Thank you guys for listening to our show. I know it's almost, the year is almost done. We're done season 3 in a couple of weeks. We appreciate you guys, and we have great things coming up for season 4 in the new year. I know we're not there yet, so this doesn't see you next year just yet, but we'll have some amazing stuff for you next year. But thank you guys for listening, and as usual, if you haven't rated us and you enjoyed this episode, we would love for your feedback on wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.